What's up, guys? Mike Lewis here, and welcome to the Mike Lewis podcast. If you guys want to keep up with me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lewis Official, and you can follow me on Twitter at MikeLew52. It's where most of my updates come. If you're enjoying my content, give me a like and a subscribe. And without further ado, let's just dive right into this episode. Okay, Sophia, thanks for taking the time out and coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's good to be here. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
It's been a long while, man. It's even freaking me out looking at myself on the camera. It's how long it's been.
Well, us fellow Jersey people got to stick together,
Yeah, I guess so. I can dig that.
We get a better rep these days. I feel like we could have did this podcast in person. I think little known fact for the people watching this, we live probably about like 5 or 10 minutes away from each other.
Well, we got to keep it the COVID protocol, I suppose.
Yeah. How long have you been in Jersey for?
I've been here for only about 3 years now. I moved here. I was living up in Manhattan for about 6-7 years, and then I moved here when I got out of a relationship and started over, and I rebuilt in Jersey. Here we are.
Were you?
Never thought I'd be here though. I love it though. I love it. Yeah, I love it. I'm glad I live where I live. I'm really happy.
You were in Hoboken recently, right?
I was in Hoboken hanging out with some friends, but I don't live far from Hoboken. Maybe about 10 minute bike ride.
Yeah, we're on the same type of wavelengths then.
Mm-hmm.
So were you in Manhattan pre-Road Rules?
Pre-Road Rules, I was living in Long Island, actually, because that's where I grew up. And then I moved to Manhattan. I moved other places first. After Road Rules, I moved to California. I lived in Wisconsin. I tried out Colorado for a second, and then I came back to New York, and now I'm in Jersey. Wow. Who knows where I'll go next?
Yeah, who knows? What were you doing prior to Road Rules? What were you up to, and how did that lead you to going to try out?
So before Road Rules, I just graduated college. It took me an extra year because I started school at University of New Paltz, SUNY New Paltz, and then transferred. And because I transferred, it took some credits away, so I had to stay a little bit longer. And then I graduated, but the thing was I was out at school, but not at home. So, me at school, I was just like, hey, I'm myself. And then I come back home, I'm like, hi, I'm in a little box. So it was just really weird. So any chance I could, I would leave the house. And so a friend of mine was like, hey, they're doing auditions for Road Rules in Boston. I'm like, I'll be there. Why not? Gets me out the house. I get to stop by, see my homegirls in Albany, and then go to Boston. I've never been, and I've always wanted to check it out. So that's how I ended up trying out for it. I went to an open call. I made a mistake. I got there a day early because, I graduated because I still don't know the days of the week. Got there a day early, slept in my car, went to the open call the next day, and then the rest is history.
Wow. How long of a process was it, would you say, before you actually got the go-ahead to show up?
It was about 2 to 3 months. I think I started in September. Oh, I can't believe I remember that. See? Just because I'm in my 40s doesn't mean I don't got a memory. It was in September when I started, and then by December we figured out. But my season was a little different because we did a casting special because they just told 13 people that they're on a show, and we didn't know which show to be on until we arrived at the airport. And then they were like, hey, congratulations, you're going to Morocco. I'm like, all right. Here's a little pamphlet, figure it out. It was really weird.
Yeah, I think that was the first and only time they might have done something like that, where they had that casting special. I mean, you had you there, of course. Hasella, who's been on this show a few weeks ago, she was there. The Miz, who obviously now everybody knows who he is, and Coral too, who's one of the biggest figures of the show. So you had some names there that kind of jump out at the screen a little bit. What was that process like? What was your impressions upon showing up to that house? Did you feel like overwhelmed? Did you feel like you fit better in one show than the other? What was your mindset
Well,
like?
well, I was just excited to see all these people. I'm like, all right, let's see who's up in the ring with me. I ended up being roommates with Coral, and me and her got along just fine. And then it was pretty cool, actually. It was just a couple of days of random strangers hanging out, but it was really weird because also it felt like everybody was on a campaign. Like the minute you talk to somebody, I know their life story. I'm like, really? Tell me. It was very strange. I was like, oh, really? You lost your brother, huh? Like conversations you don't usually have with somebody you just meet. So there's a lot of campaigning and everybody just telling why they belong there for some reason. I pretty much listened a lot, and people were just telling me their story, and so that was interesting enough. But I was hyped. I was excited. I thought I had a chance. But the weirdest thing, there was this weird kind of like um, there's kind of like a hunt, like, because back then everybody's always one gay person, and everybody's like, "Who's the gay person?" I'm like, "I don't know," and they're asking me, and I'm like, "Dude, it's me," but I'm like, "Oh, I'm not gonna tell nobody." Yeah. So yeah, there was just this weird hunt for it, and then yeah, eventually I came out in a show and tell, and that wasn't even my intention. I was gonna talk about something completely ridiculous, but it was so. For 2 days, everybody trying to find out who the gay person was. I was like, all right, might as well just out myself. I'm already out everywhere else.
Did you feel
Except for
pressure? Did you feel pressure because you were surrounded by those people to come out and say that, or?
no, it felt like the right thing to do. I don't really tend to do things under pressure. I may make haste decisions under pressure, but if it feels like the right thing to do, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
you were the
yeah,
first openly gay road ruler, right? I think.
yeah, man. Who
Wow,
knew?
you got that
Talk
back.
about go big or go home, huh?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I really want to do road rules. I didn't. So the way they did it was like once the 13 were chosen, they sent us luggage, and they were like, pack your luggage, like those travelers backpack. Pack a whole backpack like you're going to road rules, and pack an extra box. So like if you do get sent to real world, they'll ship it to the house. Uh, in my mind, I was like, I'm not packing that box. I'm going on road rules because I was sent. I wanted to be on road rules. That's what I would try it out for. That's where I wanted to be. And plus, I was like, real world New York, and I live in New York. That kind of sucks, man. I'm like, I don't want to live in the city that I come from. But it would have been dope living in the village. But what was I gonna say? See, I lost my thought. Don't let me go on tangents. I'll be like forever. Let's ring it back. Why don't you just ask me a question? I'll get back to it.
Yeah. I feel like if you take cast members, right, and you kind of put them down that conveyor belt, and then like the one side, it'll like almost go off, right? If you fit
Yeah,
on road rules or real world, right? And I feel like the seeing eye test, someone like yourself, who we obviously saw on a challenge, I feel like with the seeing eye test, like you would probably fit, you know,
real.
appropriately the way you were on road rules, whereas like I feel like with someone like a Hasella, she could be either or, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Someone like a Coral, that makes sense for real world, you know what I mean? Whereas like you kind of strike me as someone that's more so reads the room as opposed to
yeah,
like campaigning and is there for like the athletic stuff.
yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because they originally one of the producers who runs everything now, Julie Peasy, she had said that originally I was casted for Real World, but at the last minute they switched me to Road Rules. And I was like, sweet. I was so happy that something intervened for me to get there.
Do,
Yeah. But
do you know who you replaced? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
say it again? No,
No,
no.
I was gonna ask if you knew who you replaced or who was swapped.
Oh, who swapped? I'm not really sure. I want to say Nicole, but I don't think that's the case. I never really asked that. That would have been a good question to ask, though, but no, I never really asked. I
Mhm.
just knew I got to where I wanted to be. So
Yeah.
I took it.
Was there anything that stood out at maybe one of the auditions that they asked you, and then maybe one of your answers that you feel like maybe shifted them into wanting you?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting. So when you're waiting online, they give you like a basic like 1 or 2 sheet questionnaire, right? And they asked the question, do you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? And like, I'm staring at this question for like a minute because I'm like, either I keep lying to myself and lying to everybody or be honest. So I'm looking at it real, I'll never forget this. I was looking at it real hard and the girl was like, it's not that hard, girl. Just answer it. And I'm like, oh, shit, fine. So I said, no, I don't have a girlfriend. And the second question that was tricky was, when it comes to relationships, are you a fox or a hound? And I said, well, that's tricky because when it comes to girls, I'm a hound because they all think I'm straight. And when it comes to boys, I'm a fox because they all think I'm straight. So that's how I answered it. So after waiting for a long time online, you meet like maybe 10 of us meet a casting director. So this woman, Sasha, was looking through the application and she was like, Sophia and this other girl, Rebecca, is like, look, I can't really understand your handwriting. I need you to clear some things up. Can you stay back so we can do that? I was like, yeah, my bad, because I know I was writing. I was like an asshole. So, can I curse on this thing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry. So, because it's not the easiest thing to write and like stand. And so she goes aside, like, that was an excuse to set you guys apart. We want you to continue to the next round, which was like a 30, 40-page application. So she's looking over my paperwork and goes, so, Sophia, everybody thinks you're straight? And then the girl next to me is like, you're gay? And I'm like, my point exactly. and that's how that went. I forgot about that, man. Thanks for reminding me of that story.
No, yeah, that's like one of my things I like to unpack because, people usually tell their casting stories or processes like I did this interview, blah 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 blah. But then I try to like unpack and like dig deep and want to hear like maybe what was the question that maybe piqued the producer's interest. You know what I mean? That's something that
Yeah.
get lost when thinking about how people get on the shows.
Well, during the whole process, after that, they made me send the video. Oh, after I did the other page, then I had to stay an extra. Oh, my goodness, I forgot to tell you that part. So afterwards, they were like, okay, I know you're not from here. Are you heading back to New York? And I'm like, yeah, I got to go back. I slept in my car the night before. I don't have a place to stay. And the girl was like, oh, you can crash with me. I'm like, all right, cool. So I stayed at her, and then they called me the next day for an interview, and then it kept going. But it wasn't until the casting special, they were a little concerned about me not being out to my family. Because I guess on a prior season, somebody did that, came out on the show before their family, and they had big trouble. So
Wow.
they wanted to make sure everybody who was on there was out. So as the interview process came, they were like, well, did you come out to your family? And I lied off my ass. So I was like, yeah, I came up to my mom. And like, how did she take it? And I literally read out of a script. She was so upset. Did it like I watched a TV movie. And so she's like, you feel better? I'm like, yes. How about your dad? I'm like, no, I haven't come out. So they made an exception for me and saying like, you don't have to come out on the show. You don't have to tell them before you tape the show, but you have to tell them afterwards. But let me backtrack because I got to the casting special. So when I got to the casting special, they were really concerned about it. But one of the directors said because I said this line, that's when they proceeded to go forward as choosing me as one of the finalists. They were like, "Are you sure you want to go with it?" I'm like, there's one point in your life you're gonna have to live it for yourself and not for everybody else. And I feel like this is this point, and I got to do this for me, or I'll never get out of this box. And then because I said that, they were like, all right, she's fine to go. I think they were worried about me, I don't know, having a breakdown or something of that sort.
Wow, I mean that's actually interesting to hear. I mean, especially I feel like maybe in a current day and age they might do something like that where they want, because obviously right now we're in such a social media heavy day and age where, you know,
Yeah.
how people perceive you is pretty much like the main thing that comes with being on reality TV because, people watching. And I feel like back then it might not be as big of a focal point. You're not probably dealing with. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like when you were first on the show, maybe you weren't necessarily having to deal with some backlash, maybe, or anything like that.
No, we had the chat rooms on MTV.com, and people will say things because that's when trolling really just started,
Mm.
and people will just say comments and then leave. And so it wasn't as heavy as it is now. I mean, you have to understand, like, I started college when emails just started happening. I learned about opening up I have a Hotmail, man. So by the time I graduated, computers were just starting to like get to this next level. So there was a lot of in-person trouble. Like somebody will
Yeah.
see you and be like, "Oh, you know what? I would get a lot of when MySpace was still there." Oh my goodness, I did age myself. When MySpace was still there, I would have random people come to me in the streets like, "You didn't accept my friend request," and like one girl pushed me. I was like, "Oh my bad. I didn't know. I don't know you," and now I know why. You know, so that was interesting in itself. That was the biggest thing. But nowadays, I think it's a whole different world, and I can't even imagine functioning, even going to high school with all this social media. That's crazy. It's like one bad mistake, you're done. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Did that happen a lot with you? You got noticed in public a lot?
Yeah, I got noticed. Mostly more other everybody else got noticed, but I have I have big hair, so it's not really it's I can't really hide it very much, so, except when I'm wearing my hat. But even then, now when I wear my hat, people know because I wear it so much. I know, which I'm trying to change. So yeah,
Was that ever
but
weird for you?
yeah, it was in the beginning because I literally came from just being cool and just I was the person who's just laid back and like, hey, let's have a good time and stuff like that too. Like everybody knows you and sees you and is in your face. And so for a while it took me to adjust. There was a time where I didn't want to come out the house because I was just too overwhelmed. But everything and my parents also were a little nervous. I think they were really worried about how people were going to receive me. But things changed. I remember I had gone to Verizon to pay my phone bill with my dad at the mall, and all these people came to have autograph and like take pictures. And my dad was like, "Okay, so it's not so bad, Sophia. Okay." And so yeah, so that kind of helped ease the passage.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it was an adjustment.
Hmm. We had a follower question here. They wanted to know what was the where was the disconnect with Ellen on the show? Like why did you guys not maybe see eye to eye?
Ah, Ellen's an interesting in the. I mean, back then, I don't know how she is now. Ellen was still kind of. I don't know. We lost. You never really got to see a lot of Ellen because she was too involved with this whole Adam thing, and everything was based around like her relationship and her reaction to the relationship and things that it triggered and stuff. So you never really got to see Ellen as just Ellen because she was already teamed up with Adam, who's another character, you know. So she had some humor, but I don't know. Her personality didn't show. She was a very sweet girl though, and we tried to connect. But sometimes there's people you're good with, but you just don't click with, or maybe you just haven't found the thing to click with. Or maybe my head was up my butt, up my ass, because I was thinking about a million other things. There could be so many variables, but uh, I know that after the show, I hung out with her once or twice, and that's when after the show I had lost all this weight, and then she was like, "Girl, you need to change up your outfit." She was giving me all this makeover ideas, and I'm like, "Okay, Ellen, I'm gonna try that," and it worked. So hey, that's what I got for Ellen. But yeah, but besides that, she was a smart girl and really sweet and kind. But I think her personality got whitewashed because of the relationship with her and Adam, in my
Uh,
opinion.
yeah, and I don't think many people know how she is today 'cause she's like completely off the grid these days.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I didn't expect it to be anything more than she wanted to do, you know? She got what she needed. She probably got a lot of backlash or didn't get a lot of backlash. I know when we were at the VMAs, uh, Puff Daddy came to her and was like, "You love that boy, don't you? You love that boy." So I'll never forget that. She's like, "Can you believe P. Diddy's looking at me?" I'm like, "Yeah, Ellen." So that's cool.
What about you and Adam? What was your relationship like with him?
We butt heads a lot because at the time I thought he was a bit misogynist at the time. And he was always kind of like, I don't even know if he was misogynist. He was just more of like, I'm the man, I'm the guy, I'm gonna drive. Like there were so many times I wanted to drive the RV. He's like, no, I'm driving. And I drove better than him, man. I'm a great driver. And the amount of things he hit all through Morocco and Spain is ridiculous. It's like, you won't let me take the wheel, but yeah, you're gonna take this sign down. Now I got to talk to French to these police and tell them that sorry, you're a stupid American. Like it was kind of talking people off the ledge because of how bad he was driving. So,
Wow.
but he was, but outside of that, he had a I don't know. Maybe he had something to prove, but me and him butt heads because there was an arrogance to him that I didn't care for, and that was one of the things that back then that really rubbed me wrong. Like when you're super arrogant and don't give people a chance and think that just because you're who you are or you're a dude that you're better. It's like, nah, man. It's like, no. So we just butt heads in that way. But on the flip side of it, he also had a really good heart, and he is a really sweet guy. So it's kind of like it's weird to it's weird to remember him in the way that I knew him, and to know how I've become in my 40s and how he probably, you know, evolved. I'm sure he's been through a lot, and he still has that good heart, but certain habits are hard to break sometimes.
I think that because I had Hasella on, and she was talking about him too. I think like didn't he have like ADHD or something, and they weren't giving him his medication, and that's what caused a lot of his.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I forgot about that aspect. He did have ADHD. I don't. I didn't know enough about it at that time, but sometimes he would go a little off the rails and go really bonkers. Not bonkers, but like not bonkers because that's the wrong word to use for it. Uh, he would just. I don't know. You know how sometimes you get lost in your own space. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. He would get lost in his own space, and sometimes it'd be hard to reel him back to reconnect. And other times he would just be Adam. and
yeah.
and that's the thing. Sometimes you didn't know which part was Adam and which part was HDHD. So it was very confusing. And I know some people were thinking, I forgot who had the conversation. We're thinking like maybe sometimes he would just like play it off like and put the blame on it when it was really him. And it's kind of like you're really not going to question it because you don't really question somebody who has mental health issues, because it's rude. It's not, and it's you don't know anything about it, so who you'd ask.
Yeah.
So there was a fine line between that a couple of times, but I forgot all about that. There was a lot of conflict with that. I know just the beef that I had with him was just because I just found him to be very arrogant and very misogynist sometimes.
Did you feel like everything with you on that road rule show was like portrayed, the best way, or were there some things out of place that you didn't like, or?
No, I think for the most part it was good. I think the parts that I get a little weary is my part in it. I, you know, I so when you're doing these interview processes, you really are going through therapy sessions. And if you've never been to therapy, which I never did, it brings up the stuff that you didn't even realize was happening. Like I'll go into these interviews like, oh, I'm so happy, next level, yeah. And then I'll come out of it like, I hate my family and my dad,
Mm.
And then you're dealing with all this internal stuff that they pick up, and then they throw you in the setting with cameras, people you don't know, strangers, extreme situations. And at that time, I didn't realize that I was a person who kind of goes within themselves when stuff starts to like bubble. And I was so hell bent on not being pigeonholed to be the gay person because I knew there was so much more to me that I resisted and I played myself for that. And but it was exactly, I was being who I was at the time, but I wish I could have been a better version of that, and
Mm.
opened up and shared my story more. I wasn't thinking about everybody. I was just thinking about what I was going through and
Yeah.
what I was going to have to face when I got home. So I always regretted that, but you can't really change what's already happened.
How
But yeah,
how was that when you got home from the show and then you saw it all unfold?
uh it was it was kind of tricky because the first thing that aired was the casting special. So I told nobody in my family about it because I knew they were going to show the kiss with me and Hasella. So I was like, I'm not telling anybody. They flew us out to LA for the premiere. We were all having a good time. I land at home. I call my sister, be like, hey, I'm coming home. And oh no, I call my cousin Herman. He's like, yo, don't come home. I'm like, what happened? He's like, my little sister Claudia told everybody about the casting special, and the whole family watched it. And I was like, oh my God. I was so mortified. I didn't want to come home. And prior to that, before I left for California, I wrote my dad a letter coming out to him.
Mm.
So when I came home, he was like, I want you to, I'll never forget this. We were in this small ass room, and he was like, Sophia, you and, oh, he has an accent. So he's like, Sophia, you and I talk about everything, okay? I want you to tell me what's in this letter. And I'm like, what? It's like, you didn't read the letter? It's like, no, I want you to tell me what's in this letter. I'm like, Papi, if I could tell you what's in the letter, I would have said it. That's why I wrote it, for you to read it. He's like, I want you to tell me. He's like, okay. So he opens the letter and he starts reading it in front of me. When I tell you, time stood still. The heat of my body came out of nowhere. And then he got to the point where I came out to him and then just started bawling. He started crying so hard. And he thought he loved me too much, and that's why that happened. And I'm like, oh, Bobby, it's not about you. And after that, he started, you go through your stages. You get hurt, you're surprised, and then you're angry. And he's like, you're going to ruin your life. And then that's when I started getting angry at him. I was like, 2 minutes ago, I could do anything. But now you know that I'm gay. I'm ruining my life. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So he didn't speak to me for a while. But he did acknowledge me, but he didn't speak to me. He couldn't make eye contact. We'd have dinner. And then one day, one day my aunt made a big meal. And, you have to pass the dishes around. And then I'm like, oh, can somebody pass the bees? And he goes, here. And that's, Sophia, you have mail. So he was just like, talk to me real angry, but talk to me. I'm like, all right, that's progress. I'll take it. Pass the bees. Yeah. So, yeah. But the rest of my family, who are very Catholic and very religious, they were like, we love you. We love you, Sophia. You'll always be our Sophia. You're going to have to make your choices, but. So pretty much right now, the way they treat everything in the family is like everybody knows. We don't really talk about it, but I brought home a girlfriend before, and they've accepted. And like I raised a son, so he's come to the family, and they still ask about him. So it's kind of like they've kind of gotten over it a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
I won't make out with somebody in front of them, no way. But you know,
So, so they showed a kiss between you and Hasella?
yeah,
Wow.
it was a truth or dare kind of thing.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have like some type of a thing for her on the show, or was that
Oh
like a
yeah,
school?
Someone's a beautiful lady. Of course, you'd be dumb not to have a crush on that girl. And she's really sweet and has a really great heart.
Yeah.
Like she's a solid chick. And she speaks her mind. Even if you agree with it or you don't, it's coming from a true place. So it's hard to be angry at somebody with that. You could disagree with it, but it's hard to be angry. And she's a good person to like be like, okay, you proved me wrong. I stand corrected, kind of thing. So.
Yeah.
As long as you do it with respect and not come at her. Because then if you're gonna come at her, she's never gonna put that down. She's gonna like, oh, and I'm gonna fight you to the death, even though I'm wrong. I'm gonna fight you.
Yeah. You gotta appreciate someone with that kind of honesty. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She's a good girl. A good girl. She's a woman. She's a good lady.
So post show, I mean, you mentioned before about the VMAs. Like, did you get any post show opportunities, like any bar appearances or any type of engagements, stuff like that? Could you maybe walk me through what kind of opportunities you had?
I got to lecture a lot at universities. They put us in a course to teach us how to speak in engagements. And then I spoke a lot on diversity and self-awareness, and that was pretty good. My program was called like the Freshman 15, like 15 things you need to know about diversity, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I did it for a few years. I did a couple of bar crawls and in spring break appearances. Me and Derek Kaczynski, Kay,
Hmm.
uh, we toured the Midwest for like 2 3 months on a bar crawl. That was pretty cool. And he was fresh off his season, so he was all tiny little bulldog Derek, but he's a good dude.
What was your
I had a wild time.
what
Yeah.
was your favorite place to crawl at?
You wouldn't believe it if you would not believe it. I had a really freaking great time in North Dakota. Believe it or not, randomly North Dakota. I had a blast over there, and yeah, I always remember that this bar was connected to a liquor store, so they never ran out. And the contest we had to host, and just the people were really cool, and it surprised me, and I had a great time. West
How old,
Virginia was the most beautiful that I saw,
how old were you at that time?
like 24, 25. Yeah,
Well, okay.
I was still young
So
and had good liquor.
were you doing the whole engagement thing at schools? Like, was that like the New York area? Was that what you did?
Everywhere. I flew
Every-
everywhere. I went
Mm,
to Oklahoma. I went to like Massachusetts. I went everywhere. Indiana, everywhere. And it
wow.
was really cool to experience college culture in different places. Because afterwards, they'll take you out and then take you around the dorms. I had a blast a couple of times. Actually, that's how I met one of my first girlfriends, because she booked me to speak at University of Milwaukee.
Mm,
And
that's how you met her?
yeah, and then eventually I was like, you know what? All I need is an airport, because I was doing speaking engagements. It's like, I'm just going to move out there. So I moved out there and just flew out of Milwaukee when I had to do my engagements. Hmm.
Wow, that's really interesting, and it's funny too because I think like most people there's like a misconception. You know, most people would assume that the real worlders are the ones that get to rub elbows with all the famous people and do all this flashy stuff, but the road rulers also get in on the fun.
Yeah, so yeah, I got some good moments, especially because also there was not a lot of people who were out there in that time and my age. So I
Yeah.
got to do a lot of out events and see really cool things and be part of things like that. Yeah. But the one thing I do have to say that I really did appreciate about doing the speaking is that first it helped me figure out really what I want to say and what I believed in, and in my program, gosh, thank you. I'm sorry if I'm rambling because I haven't thought
No,
about
no,
this in
go
a
ahead.
while.
Go ahead.
In my program, I would I know I would get booked for like Pride Month and everything and diversity, but I tried to make it so that everybody understood what it was like. I said, if there was ever a time you wanted to do something and you or be somebody you couldn't, like let's say you wanted to be in art school, but your parents are like, I'm not paying for that, you gotta be a doctor. Or if you wanted to like wear polka dot and plaid, but people are clowning you, so you're just wearing monochromatic colors. Anything you want to do something that you didn't, then you've felt oppression, and that's kind of like a feeling of what you are when you're coming out of the closet. You're hiding yourself. You're not being true to yourself. You're not showing your full potential. You're like tucking your feathers under like a freaking blanket. It's like it
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's like if you have any moment. I mean, it's not. Some of the things are not equivalent, but it gives you it puts you in the mind frame of that's how it feels like, just hiding yourself. I bumbled that, but you get that. But back then, people weren't talking about that. Now it's just like everywhere. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah.
Did you meet anybody else besides P Diddy?
Yeah, I met a couple. I met a couple of people, man. And actually, most recently, I I sometimes do. So my job was working events, and I do events everywhere. So I was doing this event for Mother's Day at the UN,
Hmm.
and pretty much I had to do the talent check-in, and there were talent from everywhere. Laura Dern, everybody, like oh my gosh, Jamie King, so many people that I met. And so I had to get the elevator because Zoe Saldana was coming and they wanted the elevator. So like, Sophia, can you go push in and get it? I'm like, yeah. So the elevator comes and she walks and she was looking at me and is like, I know you. And I'm like, nah, you don't know me. It's like, you're fine. It's like, no, I know you. So she gets in the elevator. She's like, no. Are you my chef? Did I ever be a chef for me? I was like, nah, but I will. And then she's like, no, no. I was like, I know you. So where do I know you from? I was like, well, I did Road Rules and the challenge. She's like, yes. And it's like, I remember. And you were with this person and that person, and Cora was on there. I'm like, oh my God, this girl knows my life. So it was really, really cool that she remembered. And then when I went down to the green room to like get her to get up on stage, we would pass and just smile at each other. That was a really cool moment. And I had a conversation with Janet Jackson at the VMAs. Yo, it was very briefly, and I will never forget it. So during commercials, they just stopped taping so people can leave to go to the bathroom and stuff like that. So I'm like, so all the celebrities are here, and we're a couple of rows behind. So I leave and I walk so I can walk past the front of the stage and go. And then I'm walking, and then I feel a hand on my wrist. And then I look down, and it's Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson. She was like, I love your hair. However, did you do it? I said, a lady never reveals her secret. And then I walked away, and I was just like, yes. And then I continued to make an ass of myself with a bunch of people at the after parties. With Indiari first came out, and I was a little kind of drunk and gnarly at the time. So I saw her. I was like, girl, I love that song, Brown Skin. And I was doing this, and she looked at me mad weird. My friend was like, you need to go. Those are good moments.
Yeah, it seems like they're fond times to reminisce on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dang. No, you're making me happy. I haven't thought about these things in so long.
So was the challenge, is that what you were hoping for? I mean, because now it's evolved into like somewhat of a phenomenon, and people look to
Yeah,
go on reality shows. They're like, uh-oh, hopefully this propel me to the challenge. Whereas I feel like, back when you were doing Battle of the Sexes, it was still kind of like backyard games and stuff like that.
yeah,
It had some like cool challenges, like the pop culture bike jump was one that comes to mind, and
yeah.
stuff like that. But all in all, I mean, they weren't doing like to the magnitude of challenges that they're doing today, where you see them jumping off of semi trucks and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Was the challenge really on your mind frame coming off of Road Rules?
Yeah, I wanted to do one because I'm an athlete. I compete.
Yeah.
That's what I love. So I always want to do a challenge so I could push myself. And actually, when I got to do Battle of Sexes 2, I literally trained in Colorado. I was like, I'm gonna be at the end. I'm gonna win this joint. I was all set because in my mind I was like, this is my only chance. So I literally trained so I can, I have this mentality of like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't want to be able to say, as long as I can say I could do everything and say that I can't do it, I want to be ready. I don't want to not be able to do something because I can't do it. I
Mm.
want to try my best. So I kind of just trained to do that. So when I saw the challenges, I'm like, really? I was kind of a little upset. I'm not going to lie. I was like, really? This is what we're doing? This is what we're doing? I was ready for some physical stuff. But I'm glad it went down the way it did. I did get to do some cool things, so that was all right. And yeah. Mhm.
How did it stack up with your experience on Road Rules? Did it like, which one do you look back on more fondly?
Road rules,
How
because we
come?
did just that's a good question. Because I did meet a lot of good friends in Battle of Sexes too. Yeah, road rules, because it was new for everybody. All of us, it was new for all of us. I got to go to Spain and Morocco, man. That was the first time I ever left the country, so that was big for me. And I got to use my French, which I forgot, didn't realize I got fluent again. And like, I got to do some cool shit. I got to rock climb in freaking Spain. Come on, man. Who can say that? I got to jump off a bridge. I got to find an old ass man who's 60 and over to jump off a bridge where a couple of days ago somebody committed suicide because that bridge is known for committing suicide. A couple of days before they did that, had to find the 60-year-old man who jumped off the bridge with me. That was nuts. Who could say that, dude? Hey, Grandpa, you want to fake a death with me? For TV? Come on.
Yeah, who did you vibe with, or who did you maybe not vibe with from your time of Battle of the Sexes too?
Uh, who did I not vibe with? Believe it or not, the whole time I felt like my number one competition was Tina. Actually, I had a conversation with her about this
Mm.
because Ruthie, the only person who I had like a connection with was Ruthie, and so Ruthie was like, she's in it with Coral and stuff. They're an alliance, we gotta have each other's back, and I'm like, all right, that's interesting. So I never really got to know Tina very well. And plus, she's a big person. She's a big personality. But I never disliked her. But she was always like, in my mind, I was like, I have to do just as good as Tina or better than her in order to stay in this game. If she's gonna do this, I gotta do better. It was like, cause for me, that she was like my equal as far as competition wise. Who I did not get along with. Who else was there? Robin was fine. Evie's was fine. Most of the girls I got yeah, most of the girls I got along with. Coral was fine. Me and her just got into disagreements because she wanted to do, it's about the voting. She wanted her people, I wanted my people, so it was just like, a clash of that, you know.
Yeah. Was that your first time meeting Ruthie? Because I think you guys were probably the closest, I'd say, right?
Oh no, I had met her before because when I lived in Los Angeles, we had
Uh,
met and we became friends that way. But that was our first challenge and our only challenge we've done together. Yeah.
what did you feel about how that final went down? Because it's kind of a lot of fans look at it controversially. You know, they feel like the women got the raw end of the deal. Did you feel like that?
Which final? The last one, or for All
The ba-
Stars, or for
the battle of the
Battle of
sex
Sex 2?
final. Yeah.
I don't know what are they saying because I don't know what I can and cannot say. Uh, I thought first of all, I thought it was pretty fucking rad to jump out of an airplane to go into my final, dude. And I, like an idiot, thought like the proper way to jump out of an airplane is to somersault. That wasn't the case, but that was cool. Yeah. But there was a problem in our first leg. There was a problem with the key,
That's
and
what it was.
so yeah, and it was I was so livid. I've never been that so mad because after we passed that and they fixed it, we breezed through the other like in no time. We breezed straight through it, and we would have just been head to head on that puzzle part. And I was so mad by the time we got in there. I got livid. I threw a chair. I kicked things because I was so like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, because it's like $60,000 and a trip around the world right at your fingertips because of a fucking key. I was so livid. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it rubbed some people the wrong way. You know, like you know, people
Yeah,
have
man.
people have their theories, but
Who knows? But man, that could have been ours. That would have been ours because I was set. Like, because during the challenge, during that thing, I would run ahead. I would run ahead because it was like a mile between each checkpoint. So I would run ahead to read the instructions, but I couldn't start it until the rest of the team got there. So when they got there, I'm like, all right, this is what we have to do, and then we just boop bop bop right through it. Next one, bop 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 right through it, and we would have won that joint, man. The
how
boys
come?
would have been going.
Yeah, how come that was your final challenge? Like, why did you not do another one?
Because they never asked me. I knew who I was on the show. I wasn't a big enough personality, and at that time, that's what you needed, you know. I think that's I think that's what the switch with this challenge, with the, how you were talking about the backyard games to the
Yeah.
extreme. I feel like in the beginning it was really about the personalities. It was an extension of the social experiment of people clashing in extreme conditions. But now in the new challenges, it's like you're doing some crazy stuff, and it's more about how you react to that rather than the person. It's a little bit different.
Mm.
I haven't really formed that. I just thought about that right now. So don't take my word for it all the way. I still want to grow.
Well, I feel like a either well-known fact or maybe a little-known fact to those that don't know is that actually you were in quarantine for the first season of All Stars that premiered this past
Yeah,
spring. You know, as an alternate. So I want to ask you. Well, we'll get into like how that was. You know, meeting some of those people, which I mean, I know a lot of them you're probably meeting for the first time, but
yeah.
I do want to ask, like, how did that maybe come about? Because, like, when this whole first thing was pitched, I mean, I know Mark Long was reaching out to a lot of people. How did you first hear about it, or how did you get first sought out to be on? Like, did Mark reach out to you himself, or did you just get a call?
No, actually, to be honest with you, there's this one guy. His name is Colin, and he's been my fan of mine for since the beginning, like the jump. And me and Ruthie had met him once in Manhattan, and he was really always cool. And I always just kept in contact. He always checked in on me throughout the years, always remembered my birthday and stuff. And then he was like, "Hey, you know that they're doing an OG challenge?" And he told me about it. I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, just message Mark Long and let him know that you're interested if you wanted to do it." And I'm like, "You know what? Maybe yeah, I will." So I sent the message to Mark, and he got back to me, and then everything just started going from there. And yeah, it went going. And then the pandemic. We were right in the middle of the pandemic, so when they were starting to cast and stuff, they were like, "Oh, do you have your passport?" I'm like, "Son of a bitch, I don't have my passport." They were like, "That's going to be a problem." But then I was told that if I wrote my senator, they'll can expedite the passport really quickly. So I wrote my senator and I got my passport within 3 days, and then I became an alternate.
Wow.
Yeah,
So how was that, meeting some of those people? Because I think it was, what was it, you,
it
Heather,
was Heather Cook. It was
yeah.
me, Heather Cook, Ryan, Kahada, and Casey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that your first time meeting all of them?
Yep. Oh, and Jemmy was there also because Jemmy,
Jimmy.
it was Jemmy first, and then Jemmy swapped out Casey.
Mm.
Yeah.
What was it like meeting them and hanging out with them there?
Ah, first of all, I had met Ryan before a long time ago in passing because you get people all around the same circles a little bit, especially if you both live in New York and Manhattan. You're gonna run into each other. and and then so I kind of knew him, but then meeting everybody, I was just like, I have no idea who you are, but I'm not gonna act like that. I'm like, so how many challenges? How have you been? I was like, they actually helped me out a lot because they really were telling me what the challenges were like and giving me the stories about it and like kind of like giving me a history lesson of what I've been missing and how toxic some of it was and how great some of them was and how different people were and just a combination of everything and why they wanted to go back. But they really, really schooled me in a lot of things. And I didn't know, I thought I was the only one who was all insecure, be like, do I even belong here? And da 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 da. And so, yeah, it was really nice hanging out with them for 2 weeks. And we really kind of bonded over it. And Kahada, man, that's my dude. He is the funniest dude on earth. He's so surprising. I love him. Yeah. I love that dude. So surprising. I never expect half the things that come out of that guy's mouth. I'm like, what? You did what? Yeah. So yeah. And Heather Cook is the sweetest girl. I am so glad I am not on the wrong side of her because she's also a beast.
Oh
Man,
man,
she's a beast. She makes
she
me nervous.
I've had her on twice before. I mean, I think a lot of people were like so well, one, like shocked that she wasn't there, but disappointed. I mean, because she only did one challenge, but she had such a strong showing that I think a lot of people are hoping that one day she gets another crack at it.
Yeah, she actually inspired me because I said to a lot of people asked like, "Oh, are you sad that you were alternate and didn't make it?" I was like, "No, it actually kind of saved. I would have died if I did the first challenge. I was so out of shape. I was not even close to what I needed to be to do this challenge. I probably would have died." And then while during quarantine, Heather was like working out, and then just looking at her, I was just like, dude, Sophia, this used to be you. You used to be like this. So it was like seeing somebody who was like you on the inside. It really inspired me. So when I got back home, I was like, I hit the gym and I got back in it. And I started feeling myself again. So thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. you know?
So,
So,
so
and Casey, yeah.
oh no, go ahead. What were you saying about Kate?
Casey Casey is just a classic Texan beauty. She is a firecracker, that one. She's got a good heart, but she's so smart. She's super smart. She's a lot smarter than people don't are aware of. So you gotta be careful because she's a good one.
Yeah,
And Ryan is just the dude.
yeah.
you know, he's
He's
a
a,
he's a good connector. He brings people together.
yeah, he's really relatable. He's also another fellow Jersey person as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
We had a conversation about him. About it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a very good. Like if I had to choose like a politician of the group, he would be a good politician because he can connect all the people and he'll always be honest and speak the truth about it. It's a really he's very innate with him. It's a very good gift he has. Mhm.
So, how do you feel like you would shake up in this new social media world now? Say if you had been on it.
I think it would be good. Only because, the thing with the shows before, you watch it and there's so many things you wish you could have said or talked about in your interviews that you weren't thinking at the time. So with the social media, it gives you a platform to say the things that you want to say and explain your position and stuff. So I think it can be used for good, depending on how you wield it. It's just another sword.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Mhm.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out and hopping on here today and chatting with me. And I think a lot of people watching this maybe are hoping that maybe one day we will see you again. You know, never say never.
You never say never, you know. See, I
Yeah.
got the guns now. Woo, look at that! Look at that! No, just kidding. But I had a great time. Thanks for bringing me back to memory lane. I haven't thought about those things in a while. I
Oh,
hope I answered all your questions correctly.
no, yeah. You did a great job. I had a lot of fun listening to a lot of your fun stories, a lot of laughs.
Yeah, oh gosh, me and my tangents. You can laugh at me about that any day, because I laugh at myself for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll let you know when this is out. You know, I'll tag
yeah,
you in all the fun stuff. Yeah, and have a great rest of your day and take care.
yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right,
Bye.
thank you. Bye.